Welcome painter, today I got a surprise for you. At the end of the video I will be raffling this miniature, so I recommend you watching the whole video. This video is sponsored by Kit Logic Company. In the description below there is a link where you can see the Robotech miniature. Have a look because the miniatures are awesome. Now I'm going to explain how to paint this miniature. I will use the Airbrush plus the brush, so if you are ready, let's go for it!
We start by priming the miniature. Here's a link to a video where I explain what colors to use to prime your minis. Now, I will paint the base color, and I'm going to use Somber Gray from the Game Color range. I shake the bottle well, and I put a couple of drops in this old blister. I add a few drops of thinner. Why thinner? Because the Game Color range is thicker. And if we want to use it with the airbrush, it's highly recommended you use this product, the Airbrush Thinner. We stir very well since we want to get the perfect dilution. I guess I've got it. Very important to use an old brush when mixing paints. I will use the Infinity CR Plus with a 0.15mm needle. I try it out, it comes out perfectly with a working pressure of 1.8 bar. And now comes the coolest part, painting with the airbrush. Take a good look in the box, how I press the trigger down a little bit, and I pull back just a little so I have more control with the airbrush. Notice the paint comes out very fine. Where will it hit? Well, on the highest areas, leaving the recesses unpainted. That's the trick, to press the trigger like this. A little bit down and a little bit back. So the spray comes out super fine and we cover the entire surface except for the grooves. If we press too much, we will paint the recesses, and we don't want that. Pay close attention to the box. I repeat, that's the secret. The way I press the trigger. Notice the finger placement on the trigger. And here you can see the final result of the first step. Second step, and I will use dark blue gray as the first highlight. I shake the bottle well and add a couple of drops to the blister. I add thinner. Water would work as well, since the model color range also works very well with water. Well, I mix very well until I get the perfect dilution. Neither too thick nor too thin down. That's it. I put it inside the airbrush. Test it out, always check it before painting. And now I'm going to apply the first highlight. Look closely in the box, how I press the trigger. Very short and precise movements. So we will achieve the best results. Don't worry if you don't get it the first time. That's normal. Practicing is necessary to achieve it. The more minis you paint, the better you'll get. Notice how I highlight part of the arm. Very fine and precise layers. I focus on this edge and painting this plate. Notice that I already get a little contrast between the base color and the first highlight. Now, on the leg. I paint in blocks. I start with the arm, then the leg. And I continue going, highlighting little by little, without any hurry. Seeing the figure, not rushing. That's the secret. The highest part of the knee pad, I press very little, very soft layers, so I get more precision. Notice I move the airbrush like a brush, like brush strokes. And since I press lightly, paint does not enter the recesses, just on the highest areas. This way, we will save time outlining later, although we are going to use a brush to outline the edges and the grooves a bit as well. And here you can see the final result of how I applied the first highlight. Step number 3, I will use pale gray and verdigris from the game color range. I put both colors in the blister, but first I shake them well. I also add some drops of thinner. And mix both colors carefully. It's very important to achieve a perfect dilution. That's it, I put it inside the airbrush. Test it, it's crucial to check before painting. And now I will apply the second highlight. Where? In the same areas as in the previous step, but reducing the area that gets highlighted. Observe the knee pad, I highlight the upper part. With just a couple of layers you can already see the change. Come on. The other knee pad the same. On the leg, I focus on the edge, I highlight it. And look at the movement with the airbrush. I use it like a brush, applying soft layers. This way I cover the surface, which in this instance is the edge. I tilt it a bit and get closer to be more accurate. Don't worry if you don't get it the first time, it's no big deal. You are learning, and to get good results, you have to practice painting. So, don't worry. Keep practicing, and little by little, you will see great results. On the arm, the same. I'm focusing on the very top. I get closer. I press very little so the paint flows more precisely. That's how I highlight. Well, I continue with the legs, thin and accurate layers. I highlight this plate a bit as well. So, now the head. If you notice, I'm going very slowly. I'm not in a hurry. I observe the figure and highlight it in the most important areas. On the legs, I focus on the upper parts. To find a contrast between light and shadow. Lower parts, I apply less highlight. And here you can see the final result of step 3. Final step with the airbrush. I will use pale gray and dead white from the game Air range. I put both colors in the blister and add 1 to 2 drops of thinner. Not too much, since the game Air range is specially formulated for airbrushing, so you don't have to add too much water or thinner. So I stir well, and if you notice, the dilution is a bit thinner than normal. Because it's the final step, and I want to get a more fine finish. Since I will use the brush next to make the highlights stand out more. So, use a more diluted consistency in the final step. Pay close attention as I get closer and press the trigger just a little, because I want to achieve a more precise highlight on some parts. For example, in the middle of the head, on the upper plate of this kind of shoulder pad, on the forearm, pay attention to the fact that the paint is more diluted, so if you want it to show more, you have to apply more layers. I also focus on the edge of the knee pad. Notice they are very soft touches. And precise. I recorded a video about paint dilution, how to use the airbrush, and more tricks. Here is a link to that video. If you are new to this channel, I recommend you watch it. And here you can see the final result of step 4. Step number 5. Now I will use the brush to add definition to all the grooves. I will use the blue wash and black wash from the Game Wash range. I put these kind of washes in the bowl, and if you look, I also mix both washes. And now the process is very simple. We just have to paint all the recesses. As we used the airbrush previously and we didn't cover the grooves, we will find it easier now. Because the washes will enter all of the recesses, helping to define all the plates. Notice these washes are very diluted, so just rest the brush and the paint will enter the grooves. This Game Wash range is perfect to paint all the nooks and crannies, because it's super fast. One note, notice I use more black on the lower parts of the grooves. And on the more highlighted parts, we will use blue or the mixture of black and blue. Come on, as you can see, the process is very simple, but labor-intensive. And here you can see the final result after applying the washes. Step number 6, and now I will put all of the colors I used before on the wet palette. Since I will paint the edges to add more definition between plates. It's another necessary but time-consuming process. So, I add a couple of drops of water to the colors. It's always great to work with a wet palette because the colors always stay fresh. Pay close attention to how I paint the edges now. I give the brush a little edge to be more accurate. And I'm going to paint all of the edges. On the highest plates, I use pale gray or dead white. On the lower parts, I will use darker colors, okay? Don't use pure white on a very dark area. It won't look good. It will be very strange. So you can use verdigris or pale gray on those parts. Loading just a little paint is very important. If you load too much paint, the outline will be rough and will not look good, since we used the airbrush in the previous steps, which results in a super smooth finish, and so we have to achieve the same result with the brush. A lot of painters use the airbrush perfectly, but then when they use the brush, the difference is way too noticeable. Because they load too much paint. So write that down. Load just a little paint when outlining. That way you'll get a good result, and the difference with the airbrush won't be noticeable. I paint some little lines to add texture to the plates, as if it was a bit of wear or shine. And notice I am using an Artist Opus brush, number 1. It's not necessary to use a finer brush. Just a brush with a sharp point is enough to outline the edges. And here you can see the final result with all the edges painted. Step number 7. Next, I will paint the gun and the turbines. I will use black and ice yellow. Why do I use this color? Because it contains yellow and so adds luminosity. The armor is painted in gray, cold and desaturated tones with a lot of white. So if we use yellow when painting the weapon and turbines, we will visually separate both parts a lot. Write down this trick. And the process when painting the gun is very simple. Look at the box as I mix the colors. To highlight, I add more ice yellow. I apply it on the edges and upper planes of the weapon, leaving the recesses unpainted, since later, with black ink or with blue, I will further outline those recesses. The first thing is to illuminate the entire plane of light, the edges, and then shade. I also want to ask you a favor. If you like the video, hit the like button. This will help me a lot to continue recording videos. And very important, the company Kids Logic told me that if this video gets a lot of likes, they will hold another raffle on the channel. So, if you like Robotech, click the like button and at the end of the video, click on the link in the video description. That will take you to their website, where you can see all of this company's products, especially Robotech. Well, I keep painting. You see that the process is very simple. I go little by little, painting everything. I add some bright glints on the magazine. And here you can see the final result as I paint the gun and the turbines. The process is very simple. Step number 8. Now I will paint the inside of the turbines. I want to get an effect like they're powered on, a strong reddish hue. First thing is to apply the base color. I will use Hull Red. If you look in the box, notice that the paint is more diluted than normal because I want it to enter all of the grooves. That's a good trick, adding some more water so the paint fills all the grooves. I also take the opportunity to add this tone to some parts of the armor with Hull Red. So I change the tone a bit. And now I will paint the inside. I will use these colors. I put all of the colors on the wet palette, which are all shades of red and a strong orange. I apply the first red tone. I'm sorry for the defocus. You can also see how I am applying this color inside the turbine. I focus especially on the lower areas, leaving Hull Red on the upper parts. One trick is to paint the color, let it dry. You can use the hairdryer to speed up the process. And then apply the same color again so the color becomes more intense. Well, I keep highlighting with orange. As you can see, the effect changes a lot as we add red and then orange. I add a bit more orange. And you can already see the effect, as if the turbine is red hot. This process is sped up, since you can see that it is very simple. Well, I will add a little bit of ice yellow and white to create a brighter effect. I focus on the lower parts of the turbine. I highlight the brightness a bit. And here you can see the final result. You can see I painted the visor with green tones and a yellow stripe on the helmet. Follow my Instagram profile if you want to know the color recipes. I hope you liked this video very much.
If you like the video, share it with your friends, and now let's hold the raffle. To participate, leave a comment with the hashtag Robotech and subscribe my channel. The winner will be announced next week. So guys, paint a lot and see you next video.